functions that have complex number inputs and complex number outputs, and which you can also take a derivative of. Basically, what it means to have a derivative in this context is that when you zoom in to how the function behaves near a given point, to the point and its neighbors, it looks roughly like scaling and rotating, like multiplying by some complex constant. We'll talk more about that in just a bit, but for now, know that it includes most of the ordinary functions that you could write down, things like polynomials, exponentials, trig functions, all of that. The relevant dynamics in the title here comes from asking what happens when you repeatedly apply one of these functions over and over, in the sense of evaluating on some input, then evaluating the same function on whatever you just got out, and then doing that again, and again, and again, and again. Sometimes the pattern of points emerging from this gets trapped in a cycle. Other times, the sequence will just approach some kind of limiting point. Or maybe the sequence gets bigger and bigger and it flies off to infinity, which mathematicians also kind of think of as approaching a limit point, just the point at infinity. And other times still, they have no pattern at all, and they behave chaotically. What's surprising is that for all sorts of functions that you might write down, when you try to do something to visualize when these different possible behaviors arise, it often results in some insanely intricate fractal pattern. Those of you who watched the last video have already seen one neat example of this. There's this algorithm called Newton's method, which finds the root of some polynomial p, and the way it works is to basically repeatedly iterate the expression x minus p of x divided by p prime of x, being the derivative. When your initial seed value is in the loose vicinity of a root to that polynomial, a value where p of x equals 0, this procedure produces a sequence of values that really quickly converges to that root. This is what makes it a useful algorithm in practice. We tried to do this in the complex plane, looking at the many possible seed values and asking which root in the complex plane each one of these seed values might end up on. Then we associated a color with each one of the roots, and then colored each pixel of the plane based on which root a seed value starting at that pixel would ultimately land on. The results we got were some of these insanely intricate pictures, with these rough fractal boundaries between the colors. Now in this example, if you look at the function that we're actually iterating, say for some specific choice of a polynomial, like z cubed minus 1, you can rewrite them to look like one polynomial divided by another. Mathematicians call these kinds of functions rational functions. Arose from Newton's method, you could reasonably ask what happens when you iterate any other rational function. And in fact, this is exactly what the mathematicians Pierre Fatou and Gaston Julia did in the years immediately following World War I. And they built up a surprisingly rich theory of what happens when you iterate these rational functions, which is particularly impressive given that they had no computers to visualize any of this the way that you and I can. I think this distinguishes Julia as easily being one of the greatest mathematicians of all time who had no nose. Now remember those two names, they'll come up a bit later. By far, the most popularized example of a rational function that you might study like this, and the fractals that can ensue, is one of the simplest functions, z squared plus c, where c is some constant. I'm going to guess that this is at least somewhat familiar to many of you, but it certainly doesn't hurt to quickly summarize the story here, since it can help set the stage for what comes later. For this game, we're going to think of c as a value that can be changed, and it'll be visible as this movable yellow dot. For the actual iterative process, we will always start with an initial value of z equals 0. So after iterating this function once, doing z squared plus c, you get c. If you iterate a second time, plugging in that value to the function, you get c change around the value c here. You can kind of see how the second value moves in lockstep. Then we can plug in that second value to get z3 and that third value to get z4 and continue on like this, visualizing our chain of values. So if I keep doing this many different times for the first many values, for some choices of c, this process remains bounded. You can still see it all on the screen. And other times it looks like it blows up, and you can actually show that if it gets as big as 2, it'll blow up to infinity. If you color the points of the plane where it stays bounded black, and you assign some other gradient of colors to the divergent values based on how quickly the process rushes off to infinity, you get one of the most iconic images in all of math, the Mandelbrot set. Now, this interactive dots and stick visualization of the trajectory, by the way, is heavily inspired by Ben Sparks' illustration in the number file video he did about the Mandelbrot set, which is great. You should watch it. I honestly thought it was just too fun not to re-implement here. I would also highly recommend the interactive article on acco.net about all of this stuff for any of you who haven't had the pleasure of reading that yet. What's nice about the Ben Sparks illustration is how it illuminates what each different part of the Mandelbrot set actually represents. This cardioid section includes the values of C so that the process eventually converges to some limit. The big circle on the left represents the values where the process gets trapped in a cycle between two values. And then the top and bottom circles show values where the process gets trapped in a cycle of 3 values, and so on like this. Each one of these little islands kind of has its own meaning. Also notice, there's an important difference between how this Mandelbrot set and the Newton fractals we were looking at before are each constructed, beyond just a different underlying function. For the Mandelbrot set, we have a consistent seed value, z equals 0, but the thing we're tweaking is the parameter, c, changing the function itself. So what you're looking at is what we might call a parameter space. But with Newton's fractal, we have a single unchanging function, but what we associate with each pixel is a different seed value for the process. Of course, we could play the same game with the map z squared plus c. We could fix c at some constant, and then let the pixels represent the different possible initial values, z naught. So whereas each pixel of the Mandelbrot set corresponds to a unique function, the images on the right each just correspond to a single function. As we change the parameter c, it changes the entire image on the right. And again, just to be clear, the rule being applied is that we color pixels black if the process remains bounded, and then apply some kind of gradient to the ones that diverge away to infinity based on how quickly they diverge to infinity. In principle, and it's kind of mind-warping to think about, there is some 4-dimensional space of all combinations of C and Z naught, and what we're doing here is kind of looking through individual 2-dimensional slices of that unimaginable pattern. You'll often hear or read the images on the right being referred to as Julia sets or Julia fractals. And when I first learned about all this stuff, I'll admit that I kind of was left with the misconception that this is what the term Julia set refers to, specifically the z squared plus c case, and moreover that it's referring to the black region on the inside. However, the term Julia set has a much more general definition, and it would refer just to the boundaries of these regions, not the interior. To set the stage for a more specific definition, and to also make some headway towards the first goal that I mentioned at the start, it's worth stepping back and really just picturing yourself as a mathematician right now, discovering all of this. What would you actually do to construct a theory around this? It's one thing to look at some pretty pictures, but what sorts would you ask if you actually want to understand it all? Now, in general, if you want to understand something complicated, a good place to start is to ask if there are any parts of the system that have some simple behavior, preferably the simplest possible behavior. And in our example, that might mean asking, when does the process just stay fixed in place? Functions arising from Newton's method, by design, they have a fixed point at the roots of the relevant polynomial. The entire expression is simply equal to z. That's what it means to be a fixed point. If you're into exercises, you may enjoy pausing for a moment and computing the fixed points of this Mandelbrot set function, z squared plus c. More generally, any rational function will always have fixed points, since asking when this expression equals z can always be rearranged as finding the roots of some polynomial expression. And from the fundamental theorem of algebra, this must have solutions, typically as many solutions as the highest degree in this expression. Incidentally, this means that you could also find those fixed points using Newton's method, but maybe that's a little bit too meta for us right now. Now, just asking about fixed points is maybe easy, but a key idea for understanding the fold dynamics, and hence the diagrams that we're looking at, is to understand stability. We say that a fixed point is attracting if nearby points tend to get drawn in towards it, and repelling if they're pushed away. And this is something that you can actually compute explicitly using the derivative of the function. Symbolically, when you take derivatives of complex functions, it looks exactly the same.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Shabbat Torah study. of the World Alliance of Qara'im. I'm Hakham Melech ben Yaakov of the Alliance. And we're going to get started in just a moment. So let's see here. Let me try to share the screen correctly. And we're starting in Genesis 28:10. Genesis 28:10. Let's bring that up. All right, let's see. I think if I share like this, then it should work. So share, stop screen, share screen. And we're going to do window. And I think we're doing this one. Share. Right, then we get that pattern, which is not good. But if I go over here, okay, that's what I want. Cool. That is precisely what we want. So let me get my face out of there for now. Well, I'll leave it here until we start actually reading. And once again, we're going to be starting in Genesis 28:10. Genesis 28:10. So let me bring that up right now. Genesis 28. One. Hebrew. And here we've got our Genesis 28:10. One second. Just 1 second, because that's a bit weird. Because last week we stopped in Genesis 25. So why are we doing just 1 second here? Maybe I'm going to want to go back. Mm. 2010 through 32:3. Huh. I'm a bit confused, but okay, it doesn't matter. We'll start in 28:10. Okay. I think I've written that right here. 1 second. Yeah, Vayetzei. Okay. I guess my mind's playing tricks on me. Okay, no big deal. Let's start in 28:10. Actually, I want to start a little bit. I'm just going to read here. And that's the way we've been doing it lately. That's the way we've been doing the Torah study lately, is just reading through first. You get rid of this. And without discussing, unless there's some very, very burning issue that we want to stop and discuss. But that's what we've been doing, reading through. And then afterwards, going back and picking out certain points that are important. Okay, so since we're just reading through, to get the context of the story, I want to go back a little bit. And if anybody wants to read, if anybody wants to come onto the screen and read, then just let me know. Feel free to do so. In the meantime, we're going to get started. We're going to be in Genesis 28:1. And I'll just read through. So it says, ויקרא יצחק אל יעקב, ויברך אותו, ויצווהו, ויאמר לו, לא תיקח אישה מבנות כנען, קום, לך, פדנה ארם, ביתה בתואל, אבי אמך, וקח לך משם אישה מבנות לבן, אחי אמך. Verse 3. ואל שדי יברך אותו, ויפרך וירבך, והיית לקהל עמים. Oh, so much to say here, but I promised I was going to stop. And I was just going to read through. ויתן לך את ברכת אברהם לך, ולזרעך איתך, לרשתך את ארץ מגוריך אשר נתן אלוהים לאברהם. וישלח יצחק את יעקב וילך פדנה ארם אל לבן בן בתואל הארמי אחי רבקה אם יעקב ועשיו. Verse 6. וירא עשיו כי ברך יצחק את יעקב ושלח אותו פדנה ארם לקחת לו משם אישה בברכו אותו. ויצו אליו לאמור לא תיקח אישה מבנות כנען. וישמע יעקב אל אביו ואל אמו וילך פדנה ארם. וירא עשיו כי רעות בנות כנען בני יצחק אביו. וילך עשיו אל ישמעאל ויקח את מחלת בת ישמעאל בן אברהם אחות נוויות על נשב לו לאישה. ויצא, verse 10, ויצא יעקב מבאר שבע, וילך חרנה, ויפגע במקום, וילך שם כי בא השמש, ויקח מאבני המקום, וישם מראשותיו, וישכב במקום ההוא. וחלום, והנה סולם מוצב ארצה, וראשו מגיע השמיימה, והנה מלאכי אלוהים עולים ויורדים בו. Verse 13. והנה יהוה ניצב עליו ויאמר אני יהוה אלוהי אברהם אביך ואלוהי יצחק. הארץ אשר אתה שוכב עליה לך אתננה ולזרעך. והיה זרעך כעפר הארץ ופרצת ימה וקדמה וצפונה ונגבה ונברכו בך כל משפחות האדמה ובזרעך. והנה אנוכי עמך ושמרתיך בכל אשר תלך והשיבותיך אל האדמה הזאת כי לא אעזבך עד אשר אם עשיתי את אשר דיברתי לך. ויקץ יעקב משנתו ויאמר אכן יש יהוה במקום הזה ואנוכי לא ידעתי. וירא ויאמר מה נורא המקום הזה אין זה כי אם בית אלוהים וזה שער השמיים. See if there's anyone else that wants to be let in. Verse 18. וישכם יעקב בבוקר, ויקח את האבן אשר שם מראשותיו, וישם אותה מצבה, ויצוק שמן על ראשה, ויקרא את שם המקום ההוא בית אל, ואולם זוז שם העיר לראשונה. וידור יעקב נדר לאמור אם יהיה אלוהים עמדי ושמרני בדרך הזה אשר אנוכי הולך ונתן לי לחם לאכול ובגד ללבוש ושבתי בשלום אל בית אבי והיה יהוה לי לאלוהים. והאבן הזאת אשר שמתי מצבה יהיה בית אלוהים וכל אשר תיתן לי אסרנו לך. Hold on, there's a fly here. Let me see if I can kill it. Nope, it ran away. Chapter 29. וישא יעקב רגליו וילך על פסבני קדם. וירא והנה באר בשדה. והנה שם 3 עדרי צאן רוצים עליה כי מן הבאר ההיא ישקו העדרים והאבן גדולה על פי הבאר. ונאספו שם כל העדרים וגללו את האבן מעל פי הבאר והשקו את הצאן והשיבו את האבן על פי הבאר למקומה. ויאמר להם יעקב אחי מאין אתם? ויאמרו מחרן אנחנו. Let me give another shot at the fly here. לא, ויאמר להם, הידעתם את לבן בן נחור? ויאמרו ידענו. ויאמר להם השלום לו? ויאמרו שלום. והנה רחל בתו באה עם הצאן. ויאמר הן עוד היום גדול לא עת אסף המקנה. עשקו הצאן ולכו וראו. ויאמרו לא נאכל עד אשר יאספו כל העדרים וגללו את האבן מעל פי הבאר וישכינו הצאן. verse 9. עודנו מדבר עמם ורחל באה עם הצאן אשר לאביה כי רואה היא. ויהי כאשר ראה יעקב את רחל בת לבן אחי אמו ואת צאן לבן אחי אמו, ויגש יעקב יגל את האבן מעל פי הבאר וישק את הצאן לבן אחי אמו. וישק יעקב לרחל ויישא את קולו ויבך. יגד יעקב לרחל כי אחי אביה הוא, כי בן רבקה הוא, ותרץ ותגד לאביה. ויהי כשמוע לבן את שמע יעקב בן אחותו וירץ לקראתו ויחבק לו וינשק לו ויביאהו אל ביתו ויספר ללבן את כל הדברים האלה. verse 14. ויאמר לו לבן אח עצמי ובשרי אתה וישב עמו חודש ימים. ויאמר לבן ליעקב אחי אתה ועבדתי חינם ועבדתני חינם ואגיד לי מה סגורותיך. וללבן שתי בנות שם הגדול לאה ושם הקטנה רחל ועיני לאה רכות ורחל הייתה יפת תואר ויפת מראה. ויאהב יעקב את רחל ויאמר אעבדך 7 שנים ברחל בתך קטנה. ויאמר לבן טוב תיתי אותה לך מתיתי אותה לאיש אחר שבה עמדי. ויעבוד יעקב ברחל 7 שנים ויהיו בעיניו כימים אחדים באהבתו אותה. verse 21. ויאמר יעקב אל לבן הבה את אשתי כי מלאו ימי ואבוא אליה. verse 22. ויאסוף לבן את כל אנשי המקום ויעש משתה ויהי בערב ויקח את לאה ביתו ויבא אותו אליה ויבוא אליה. ויתן לבן לה את זלפה שפחתו ללאה ביתו שפחה. verse 25. ויהי בבוקר והנה היא לאה. ויאמר אל לבן מה זאת עשית לי? הלא ברחל עבדתי עמך ולמה רימיתני? ויאמר לבן לא יעסק חן במקומנו לתת הצעירה לפני הבכירה. מלא שבוע זאת וניתנה לך גם את זאת בעבודה אשר תעבוד עמדי עוד 7 שנים אחרות. verse 28. ויעש יעקב כן וימלא שבוע זאת וייתן לו את רחל ביתו לו לאישה. ויתן לבן לרחל ביתו את בלהה שפחתו לה לשפחה. יבוא גם אל רחל ויאהב גם את רחל מלאה. יאהב גם את רחל מלאה ויעבוד עמו עוד 7 שנים אחרות. verse 31. וירא יהוה כי שנואה לאה ויפתח את רחמה ורחל עקרה וטהר לאה ותלך בן ותקרא שמו ראובן כי אמרה כי ראה יהוה בעניי כי אתה יהבני אישי. וטהר עוד ותלך בן ותאמר כי שמע יהוה כי שנואה אנוכי ויתן לי גם את זה ותקרא שמו שמעון. verse 34. וטהר עוד ותלך בן ותאמר עתה הפעם ילווה אישי אליי כי ילדתי לו 3 בנים על כן קרא שמו לוי. וטהר עוד ותלך ותלד בן ותאמר הפעם אודה את יהוה על כן על כן קרא שמו יהודה ותעמוד מלדת. Okay, so that's Genesis 29. We have to go up to 32:3. So now we're going to start chapter 30. Verse 30. Just give me 1 second. I just want to grab some water and maybe kill this fly. Come here, fly. Come here. Come on. Come on, little guy. You can do it. Nope, missed him. All right. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay. So we're in Genesis chapter 30. Leah has given birth to 4 sons, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. And let's go on. Verse 30. ותרא רחל כי לא ילדה ליעקב, ותקנא רחל באחותה, ותאמר אל יעקב, הבה לי בנים, ואם אין, מתה אנוכי. ויחר אף יעקב ברחל ויאמר, התחת אלוהים אנוכי, אשר מנע ממך פרי בטן? ותאמר, הנה אמתי בלהה, בוא אליה, ותלד על ברכי, ויבנה גם אנוכי ממנה. ותיתן לו את בלהה שפחתה לאישה, ויבוא אליה יעקב. וטהר בלהה ותלד ליעקב בן. זאת אומרת, רחל, דנני אלוהים, וגם שמע בקולי, ויתן לי בן, על כן קראה שמו דן. וטהר עוד ותלד בלהה שפחת רחל בן שני ליעקב. ותאמר רחל, נפתולי אלוהים נפתלתי עם אחותי, גם יכולתי, ותקרא שמו נפתלי. Verse 9. ותרא לאה כי עמדה מלדת, ותיקח את זלפה בגד, ותקרא את שמו גד. ותלד זלפה שפחת לאה בן שני ליעקב, ותאמר לאה, באשרי כי אישרוני בנות, ותקרא את שמו אשר. Verse 14. וילך ראובן בימי קציר חיתים, וימצא דודאים בשדה, ויבא אותם אל לאה אמו, ותאמר רחל אל לאה, תני נא לי מדודאי בנך. ותאמר לה, המעט קחתך את אישי, ולקחת גם את דודאי בני, ותאמר רחל, לכן ישכב עמך הלילה תחת דודאי בנך. ויבוא יעקב מן השדה בערב, ותצא לאה לקראתו, ותאמר אלי, תבוא כי שכרתיך בדודאי בני, וישכב עמה בלילה הוא. וישמע אלוהים אל לאה, וטהר ותלד ליעקב בן חמישי, ותאמר לאה, נתן אלוהים שכרי, אשר נתתי שפחתי לאישי, ותקרא שמו יששכר. Watahar od Leah, we're in verse 19 by the way. Wat teled ben shishi Yaakov, wat tomer Leah, zavadani Elohim oti, zeved tov hapa'am, yizbaleni ish, ki yalalti lo shisha banim, v'tikra et shemo Zvulun, wachar yalda bat, v'tikra et shema Dina. These flies are really driving me crazy. I think I'm gonna have this one. Might have gotten away. Okay. We are in Genesis chapter 30, verse 22. Oops. 22. The birth of Joseph. Vayizkar Elohim et Rachel. Finally. Vayishma eleha Elohim. Vayiftach et rahama. Watahar v'teled ben v'tomer asaf Elohim et cherpati. Watikra et shemo Yosef lemor Yosef Yehovah li ben acher. Vahi kasher yalda Rachel et Yosef. ויאמר יעקב אל לבן, שלחני ואלך אל מקומי ולארצי, תנה את נשי ואת ילדי, אשר עבדתי אותך בהן, ואליך כי אתה ידעת את עבודתי, אשר עבדתיך. Verse 27, ויאמר אליו לבן, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, ניחשתי, ויברכני יהוה, בגללך, ויאמר נקבה שכרך עלי ואתננה, ויאמר אליו אתה ידעת את אשר עבדתיך ואת אשר היה מקנך איתי, כי מעט אשר היה לך לפני, ויפרוץ לרוב, ויברך יהוה אותך לרגלי, ועתה מתי אעשה גם אנוכי לביתי? ויאמר מה אתן לך, ויאמר יעקב לא תיתן לי מאומה אם תעשה לי הדבר הזה, אשובה אראה צונך אשמור, אעבור בכל צונך היום, אסר משם כל שא נקוד ותלו, וכל שא חום וכבשים ותלו, ונקוד בעזים והיה שכרי, וענתה בי צדקתי ביום מחר, כי תבוא על שכרי לפניך כל אשר איננו נקוד ותלו בעזים וחום וכבשים, גנוב הוא איתי. ויאמר לבן הן לו יהי כדבריך. Verse 35. ויסר ביום ההוא את התיישים העקודים והתלויים ואת כל העזים הנקודות והתלויות, כל אשר לבן בו בכל חום בכבשים, ויתן ביד בניו. ויסיים דרך 3 ימים בינו ובין יעקב. יעקב רואה את צאן לבן הנותרות. ויקח לו יעקב מכל מקל לבנה לך. ולוז וארמון, ויפצל בהם פיצלות לבנות, מחשוף הלבן אשר על המקלות, יצג את המקלות אשר פיצל ברהטים בשקתות המים אשר תבונה הצאן לשתות לנוכח הצאן ויחמנה בבואן לשתות, ויחמו הצאן אל המקלות, ותלדנה הצאן עקודים נקודים ותלויים. בכבשים הפריד יעקב, ויתן פני הצאן אל הקוד, וכל חום צאן לבן, וישת לו עדרים לבדו, ולא שתם על צאן לבן. היה בכל יחם הצאן המקושרות, ושם יעקב את המקלות לעיני הצאן ברהטים, ליחמנה במקלות, ובהעטיף הצאן לא ישים, והיה העטופים ללבן והקשורים ליעקב, ויפרוץ האיש מאוד מאוד, ויהי לו צאן רבות ושפחות, ועבדים וגמלים וחמורים. Very strange story, we'll get to it. Verse 31, I'm sorry, chapter 31. Here we go. וישמע את דברי בני לבן, לאמור, לקח יעקב את כל אשר לאבינו, מאשר לאבינו עשה את כל הכבוד הזה. וירא יעקב את פני לבן, והנה איננו עמו כתמול שלשום. ויאמר יהוה אל יעקב, שום אל ארץ אבותיך, ולמולדתך אהיה עמך. וישלח יעקב, ויקרא לרחל וללאה השדה אל צאנו. Just one point I have to point out here. In verse 3 it says, ויאמר יהוה אל יעקב, and Yehovah said to Yaakov, שוב אל ארץ אבותיך, return to the land of your fathers, speaking in this case about Canaan, because it's Abraham and Isaac, are Canaan, ironic, because before the land of the fathers, or the land of the Moledetecha, and Beit Avicha was actually Haran, Padan Aram, Haran, not Haran. At any rate, so it says, Avotecha Moledetecha, imach, and I shall be with you. We know later on that well, it's not the name of God, but God said, when Moshe asked, what is your name? God says, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I shall be who I shall be. Rough translation. Okay, and here it says, Ehyeh imach. Yehovah el Yaakov, Ehyeh imach. I will be with you. Now, I don't think that this may be a veiled reference to the name, although the name of Yehovah is not Ehyeh. It's an explanation for why his name is Yehovah. But nonetheless, it's just interesting. Sometimes we see these interesting plays on words or coincidences within the Torah. And here we see, when Yomer Yehovah el Yaakov, Yehovah said to Yaakov, okay, blah, 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 and I okay, just wanted to point out. Verse 4, וישלח יעקב רחל השדה אל צאנו. ויאמר להן, רואה אנוכי את פני אביכן, כי איננו אלי כתמול שלשום, ואלוהי אבי היה עמדי. ואתנה, וידעתן, כי בכל כוחי עבדתי את אביכן, ואביכן התל בי, והחליף את משכורתי 10 מונים, ולא ניתנו אלוהים להרע עמדי. אם כה, יאמר ניקודים יהיה שכרך, וילדו כל הצאן ניקודים. ואם כה יאמר עקודים יהיה שכרך, וילדו כל הצאן עקודים. ואצל אלוהים את מקנה אביכם, ויתן לי. ויהי בעת יחם הצאן, ואשא עיני, ואראה בחלום, והנה העתודים העולים על הצאן עקודים, ניקודים וברודים. ויאמר אלי מלאך האלוהים בחלום, יעקב, אמר הנני. ויאמר שא נא עיניך וראה כל העתודים העולים על הצאן עקודים, ניקודים וברודים, כי ראיתי את אשר לבן עושה לך. ואנוכי האל בית אל אשר משכת שם מצבה, אשר נדרת לי שם נדר אתה קום צא מן הארץ הזאת ושוב אל ארץ מולדתך. Now the Eretz Moldatecha, the land of your birthplace, is the land of Israel, is the land of Canaan. When Avram leaves his Moldatecha, his birthplace, he's leaving Haran. Haran, or Haran, I always get the two confused. There's a person Haran, and the name place is Haran. Wait a second. Yeah, the name place is Haran. So with the hay. So now the birthplace is the land of Canaan. Verse 14, وَتَعَانَ رَخَيْرْ أُولَيَا وَتَمَرْنَا لَو هَعُود لَنُو خَلَكْ وَنَخَلَا بِبَيْتْ أَبِינُו הלא נחריות נחשבנו לו כי מכרנו ויאכל גם אכול את כספנו. כי כל העושר אשר הציל אלוהים מאבינו לנו הוא ובנינו ולבנינו ותא כל אשר אמר אלוהים אליך עשה. Verse 14, ויקם יעקב וישא את בניו ואת נשיו על הגמלים וינהג את כל מקנהו ואת כל רכושו אשר רכש מקנה קניינו אשר רכש בפדן ארם לבוא אל יצחק אביו ארצה כנען ולבן הלוך לגוז את צאנו ותגנוב רחל את הטרפים אשר לאביה ויגנוב יעקב את לב לבן הארמי על בלי הגיד לו כי בורח הוא ויברח הוא וכל אשר לו יקם ויעבור את הנהר ושם את פניו הר גלעד ויוגד ללבן ביום השלישי כי ברח יעקב ויקח את אחיו עמו ירדוף אחריו דרך 7 ימים וידבק אותו בהר גלעד. ויבוא אלוהים אל לבן הארמי בחלום הלילה ויאמר לו הישמר לך פן תדבר עם יעקב מטוב עד רע. Very similar to the dream with that Avimelech had when he stole Rivka. No, not stole Rivka. He stole Sarah, I guess it was. I'd have to check. Because there were two. We saw yesterday it happened 3 times, right? Twice with Abraham and Sarah, and then once with Rivka. Vayetzei Lavan, verse 25. Et Yaakov, Yaakov taka et ohalo bahar, ולבן תקע את אחיו בהר גלעד. ויאמר מה עשית? תגנוב את ותנהג את בנותיי כשבויות חרב. למה נחבאת לברוח ותגנוב אותי ולא הגעת לי ואשלחך בשמחה ובשירים בטוף ובכינור ולא נטשתני לנשק לבניי ולבנותיי אתה השכלת עשו. Interesting here that the word aso is the same letters as Esav, because we're going to see something in just a bit. Yesh leah yadi la'asot imachem ra. Sorry, yesh la'el yadi la'asot imachem ra. ואלוהי אביכם אמש אמר אליי לאמור הישמר לך מדבר עם יעקב מטוב עד רע ואתה הלוך הלכתי כי נחשפת לבית אביך למה גנבת את אלוהי ויען יעקב יאמר ללבן כי יראתי כי אמרתי פן תגזול את בנותיך מאמי אם אשר תמצא את אלוהיך לא יחיה נגד אחינו. הכר לך מה עמדי וכך לך ולא ידע יעקב כי רחל גנבתם. Jeez, these flies are just driving me absolutely crazy. Hold on a second. Let's try again. You get them? Verse 33. ויבוא לבן באוהל יעקב ובאוהל לאה ובאוהל שתי האמהות ולא מצא. ויצא מאוהל לאה ויבוא באוהל רחל. ורחל לקחה את התרפים ותשימם בקר הגמל ותשב עליהם. וימשש לבן את כל האוהל ולא מצא, ותאמר אל אביה, אל יחר בעיני אדוני, כי לא אוכל לקום מפניך כי דרך נשים לי, ויחפש ולא מצא את התרפים. Strange, he would have probably killed his own daughter, or his daughter would have had to been killed if found him. We'll talk about that later too, if we get to it. ויחר יעקב וירא בלבן, ויען יעקב יאמר בלבן, מה פשעי, מה חטאתי כי דלקת אחריי, כי מי ששת את כל כלי, מה מצאת מכל כלי ביתך, שים כה נגד אחי ואחיך, יוכיחו בין שנינו. Hold on. No, got away. Damn, these flies are driving me absolutely crazy. There's 2 flies and they're very aggressive. Okay. Where were we? Verse 38. So we're in Genesis chapter 1, 31, verse 38. זה 20 שנה אנוכי עמך, בחלך, notice the word Rachel here, ועזך לא שיקלו, ואלי צונך לא אכלתי. טרפה לא הבאתי עליך אנוכי, ואחתנה מידי, ותבקשנה גנובתי יום, וגנובתי לילה. הייתי ביום אכלני חורב וקרח בלילה. חורב וקרח בלילה. ותידר שנתי מעיני. זה לי 20 שנה בביתך עבדתך, 14 שנה בשתי בנותיך, ו6 שנים בצונך. ותחלף את משכורתי 10 מונים. לולי אלוהי אבי, אלוהי אברהם, ופחד יצחק היה לי, כי אתה רקם שלחני את עניי ואת חי, ראה אלוהים ויוכח אמש. And let me just check where we have to go up to. So we're going to 32:3. Verse 43, Genesis 31. There's Bruce. Okay. Shalom, Bruce.
Hi.
Would you like to read a little bit?
Okay.
We are in Genesis 31, chapter 43. I'm sorry, Genesis 31, verse 43. And what we've been doing lately is at the beginning of the study, reading through the entire Parsha and then going back over it, because in the past, as you know, we would just talk about a couple of things and we wouldn't really get through the Parsha. So I think part of it actually was your inspiration, because I know every Shabbat you read through Parsha and you like to just go through it. So that's what we've been doing lately at the beginning of the study, just going through the Parsha and just reading it through without any commentary or very little commentary, and then going back and discussing various issues in the Parsha. So that being said, We're now in the reading. We're now up to Genesis chapter 31, verse 43. So if you want to go for it,
Okay.
it's all yours. Yep.
Lule Elohim Avi Elohim Abraham Ufachad Yitzchak Hayali Ken Ata Rekam Shilach Tani Et Ani Ve'et Yegia Kapai Ra'a Elohim V'yochach Amesh.
If I could just point out now, that was verse 42 in the copy I have. I don't know. Sometimes the numbers are off. I think it's slightly numbered slightly differently in different versions. But now we're on what appears on the screen is 43. So go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, actually, I misread that.
Okay.
Amesh. Okay. Vayan Laban Vayomer Yaakov Habanot Benotai Vehabanim Banai Vehatzon Soni Vichol Asher Ata Ro'eh Lihu Ulivnothai Ma E'eseh Le'ele Hayom O Livnehen Asher Yaladu Yaladu Data Lecha Nivreta Vrit Ani Data Daya Le'ed Beni Uvenecha Vayikach Yaakov Aven Vayiram Neha Matzeva Vayomer Yaakov Le'echav Liktor Ana Avanim Vayikhu Avanim V'yasugal V'yachlu Sha'am Al Hagal Vayikra Lo Lavan Yigar Sachadutha Vayakov Karalo Gal Ed Vayomer Lavan Hagal Hazed Beni Uvenecha Hayom Al Ken Karashmo Gal Ed V'hamitzpah Asher Amar Yitzef Yoha Beni Uvenecha Ki Nisafer Ish Mire'ehu Im Ta'a Ne'et B'notai Ve'et Ve'im Tikach Nashim Al B'notai Ein Ish Imanu Ra'eh Elohim Ed Beni Uvenecha Vayomer Lavan Liakov Hine Hagal Hazeh V'hine Hamatzeva Asher Yarithi Beni Uvenecha Ed Hagal Hazeh Ve'eda Hamatzeva Imani. That's interesting. It's not ani, it's ani. Imani lo e'evor elecha et hagal hazeh ve'im ata lo ta'avor elai et hagal hazeh ve'et hamatzeva hazot lira'a Elohei Avraham Velohei Nachor Yishbetu Venenu Elohei Avihem Vayish Ba Yaakov B'fachad Aviv Yitzchak Vayizbach Yaakov Zevach Bahar Vayikra Le'echav Le'echol Lachem Vayochelu Lechem Vayalinu Bahar. Oh, yeah, okay. Vayalinu Bahar. You want to kill it? We're up to the maftir.
No, go for it. You're doing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love your. I love listening to it.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Vayashken Lavan Baboker Vayinashek Levanav Uvenosav Vayivarech Etchem Vayelech Vayashav Lavan Lemekomo Vayaakov Halach Lidarko Vayifgeu Vo Malachei Elohim Vayomer Yaakov Kasher Am Machane Elohim Ze Vayikra Shema Makom Hahu Machanayim.
And that's it, right? That's the end of the parsha, I believe, up to 32:3, right? Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite parsha.
Really? Why is that?
Because earlier on, two parshot ago,
Yep.
if you recall, Rivka tells Yaakov, take off, flee, and spend how much time with my brother Laban? A few days. She says, spend a few days with him. And what does he do? He spends a whole month. Then he agrees to spend another 7 years. But wait, his mother told him spend a few days. He doesn't listen to his mother? The answer is given in this parsha. Those 7 years and a month were as but a few days in his eyes for his love of Rachel.
That's very beautiful.
Right? It's the most beautiful love story.
It is definitely a beautiful love story. Yeah.
And it's kind of lost because it's like so far apart. So I wrote a song about it.
Oh, let's hear the song.
Not only did I write a song, but let me get some calligraphy.
Absolutely. And I'll be back in 1 second too.
You're back.
I'm back.
Okay.
All right, Bruce.
So I'll show you. Tell me if you can see this.
Okay. I see something. Wait, hold on. I'm going to put you on the. Wait, let me see how I do this here. I think. Okay. Okay, that's just me. That's you. All right. Now we see that better. No, not as good. I think this is the best. I'm not sure how to make you appear on the screen. Oh, here we go. Wait. No. Okay, well, that made it bigger. That's for sure. Okay, I kind of see something.
Okay. It's on pseudo parchment.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this song.
Oh, there we go.
Instead of studying for an engineering test.
And when was this, Bruce?
So don't ask me to build any bridges for you.
Just windmills.
Would you like to hear the song?
Of course, we're waiting. What do you think we're doing here? Go.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
we go.
we want to hear the song.
ותקרא רבקה ליעקב בנה הקטן, ותאמר אליו קומה וברח לך אל חרן, וישבת ימים אחדים עם אחי לבן, שתב עמו ימים אחדים. וילך יעקב אל ארץ בני קדם, וירא בשדה באר ועל פי האבן, והאבן גדולה מאוד על פי הבאר, אבן גדולה מאוד. ותבוא רחל בת לבן רועה צאנו, וירא יעקב את צאן לבן אחי אמו, ואת רחל בת לבן רועה צאנו, ואת רחל אותה ראה יעקב. ויגש ואת האבן מעל הבאר גלל, וצאן לבן אחי אמו יעקב ישקע, וישא את קולו ויפקו לרחל נשק, וישק את הצאן וישקו לרחל. כשמו הלבן את שמה בן אחותו, וירוץ ויביאהו אל ביתו, חודש ימים יעקב חינם עבדו, ויעבוד חינם חודש ימים. ויאמר לבן הגידה מה משכורתך, ורחל יפת תואר, ורחל בבתך 7 שנים אעבודך, אעבודך שבשנים. ויעבוד יעקב את רחל, ויעבוד יעקב ברחל 7 שנים, ויאהב יעקב את רחל יפת פנים, ויהיו בעיניו כימים, ויהיו כימים אחדים. באהבתו, באהבתו אותה, באהבתו, באהבתו אותה.
Amazing, Bruce, really.
And applause.
What's that?
And applause.
Exactly. Very nice. When did you write that?
Well, it might have been around 1980.
Wow.
Over 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So you were studying
it was like yesterday.
Mm-hmm. You were studying engineering at the time, you said?
Yeah.
So you're saying it was 40 years ago, but it was like yesterday. So it seemed like just a few days in your eyes.
Yeah, because of my love of something.
Of Israel, I guess.
Of Israel, maybe.
Yeah. Wow, cool. And where were you studying engineering at the time?
Was that a question?
Yeah.
Again?
Where were you studying engineering?
University of Maryland, College Park.
Oh, you were back in the United States. Oh, wow.
Right. We were back in the States for 5 years.
Interesting. Cool. Wow. Very, very nice. So you were already married, and then you went back to the States for a couple of years, and then came back to Israel.
Right. We did Aliyah Pnimit Michutz La'aretz.
I don't know what that means.
When Israelis have big families,
right?
They call it Aliyah Pnimit.
I've never heard that before. What does that mean?
Internal immigration.
But why do they? I don't get it. I mean, I know what it means. I just don't get it.
Yeah, you produce new immigrants by giving birth to them.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, got it. All right, now I understand. Okay,
kind of a ridiculous expression, so I made it even more ridiculous.
Right.
Aliyah pnimit michutz la'aretz.
Right. Got it. I got it. Okay. All right. So so we read through the Parsha. Now I think what we've been doing in recent weeks is basically just, discussing issues that people want to discuss further. So, I mean, there's so much in this Parsha. It's a long Parsha, and there's just so much to discuss. So are there any particular issues that anyone would like to discuss? We're starting in Genesis 28:10 through Genesis 32:3. So Bruce or Ariella and Ben, any particular issues you want to raise here, want to discuss?
As you know, I write all my questions.
Sure. Go for it.
Vayetzei. Should I start from the beginning?
Sure. Or start with the most burning issue that you want to explore. Either one, as you wish.
Okay. So here I say in 28:10.
Yeah.
Here it says that Jacob left from Beersheba and went to, but in the previous verse, we're told that Esau also went somewhere, but does not say where he left from. If, like Jacob, he left from Beersheba, which seems like the right assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't this stated in verse 9? Okay, that's going back to the previous,
Right.
especially since 9 is before 10. There's something else that could be looked at more carefully. 28:2, Jacob is told by Isaac to go to Padan Aram.
Right.
28:5, Isaac sent Jacob and he went to Padan Aram.
Right.
28:6, Esau saw that Isaac sent Jacob to Padan Aram.
Right.
28:7, Jacob listened to his parents and went to Padan Aram. 28:10, and Jacob left and went to Haran. So
right. We actually spoke about this. I think it was last week.
Oh.
So this is basically God. I have these two annoying flies. So every so often I'm gonna have these like spasms on the screen, but I'm really trying to kill a couple of flies. So I'll get them eventually. Believe me, I'll get them. If I have to shoot them with a gun, I'll get them. But in the meantime, this is basically a geography question, and so there are three places that are mentioned. There's Haran. There is Padan Aram, as you just mentioned right now, and then there's Aram Naharaim. Okay.
And there's also Bnei Kedem.
Well, Bnei Kedem mean the children of the east. That just Kedem just means the east.
Right.
Right. So that's not a specific place. That just means the children, eastward, basically. Okay.
So it's like a geographic area. Where
it's interesting what that means, because we know that Abraham, after he married, after Sarah died, he married Keturah, and then he had children with Keturah, and then it says that he sent them with gifts to the east, right? So the east, we could do an exploration of where that means. Okay, I'm not really sure offhand. Okay, but it's somewhere east of it's somewhere east of the land of Israel. Okay, I don't think it means like Korea or something like that. I would imagine it might mean, so you have the Tigris and the Euphrates River. It might mean to the east of both of those rivers, because that kind of seems to be a major cutoff point. I don't know. I don't want to speculate because I didn't. Excuse me. Oh, I got him.
You got him.
Excuse me for 1 second while I wash a dead fly off my hand. That you little bastard. All right. So I don't know. We'd have to look at that. But let's stick with your first question, which is so we have these three place names. We know that Avraham was born in Ur Kasdim, in Ur of the Chaldees. So that is Ur is a city on I believe it's the Euphrates River or the Tigris River. It's basically in what later became Babylon. Okay, it's in ancient Sumeria, which later became Babylon. Okay, so that's Sumerian city. We can look that up as well. But then we know that his father, Abraham's father, Terach, took the family and migrated from Ur of the Chaldees, as it's called in English, to this place Haran. Okay. So this place Haran is basically. Oh, hold on, one more fly. Maybe I can get him too, and that will solve my fly problems until I open the door again. So went to this place Haran. So okay, let's just look at Haran for a second, and maybe it'll become more clear. We don't want that. Here we go, Haran. That's what we want. Okay. Called Haran, but lie within present-day Turkey. Okay, so here we have Haran in the Bible. Let's just go to this.
Are you showing something, Melech?
I should be. Oh, I took the thing off. Hold on 1 second. Let me. And by the way, I think Ariel and Ben are trying to get connected here, but it says device is not connected. Okay, hold on 1 second. I have to
Yeah,
I have to
try and help them.
do this. Yeah. 1 second. So share screen, window. Boom. There we go. Okay. So now you should be seeing it. And if we look at Haran, so Haran, also known as Karhe, was a major ancient city in Upper Mesopotamia, whose site is in the modern village of Haran, Turkey, 45 miles east of Sun Liurfa. I don't even know how to read that. That's Turkish lettering. So at any rate, if we look at this map here, I don't know why I took Haran off the map. I guess you have to look at it this way. 1 second.
So there's an actual place in Turkey today called Haran.
So there's an actual. They believe they've found the ancient city of Haran that's being referred to in the Tanakh, and there it is. Okay, so if we look at the modern day boundaries, well, there's Turkey, there's Syria. Okay, this is Iraq. So it's right on the border between Turkey and Syria on the Turkish side of the border. And just for reference, so over here would be Istanbul would be right over here. That is the whatchamacall, the Bosphorus Straits, the Straits of Bosphorus right over there. So it's all the way in eastern Turkey, right near the Syrian border. Okay. So that's Haran. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. That's what I meant to do. And we could even read this a little bit. So Haran was a major ancient city in Upper Mesopotamia whose site is in the modern village of Haran, Turkey, 44 kilometers southeast of whatever. The location is in the Haran district of the Sanliurfa. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right because that's Turkish lettering. Province. The archaeological remains are in the ancient Haran, a major commercial, cultural, science, and religious center first established in the Chalcolithic age, 6th millennium BC. The city was called Helenopolis. That's much later, obviously, in the early Christian period. So let's go down to let's see, where do we want to go to? Hittite period, middle Neo-Assyrian. Okay, I don't think we should spend too much on this, but let's read a little bit. So in the Bronze Age, the earliest records of Haran come from the Ebla tablets. From these, it is known that an early king or mayor of Haran had married an Eblaite princess, who then became the queen of Haran. Let's move ahead a little bit. Royal letters from the city of Mari, which is a very famous city, on the middle of the Euphrates have confirmed that the area around the temple, blah 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 blah. I'm trying to see if it relates specifically to something in the Tanakh, if it's going to mention the Tanakh. 1 minute later. Okay, let's not belabor it then, because we'll get caught in this.
I wonder if any Christian tour groups have tours to Haran.
I have no idea whatsoever. But so Haran is the city, okay, and we see where it's located. Okay. Now let's look at Padan Aram. Padan Aram was a region referring to the northern plain of the former kingdom Aram Naharaim. So there's that's our third name. Okay, so those are the three names we see that appear in the Tanakh, right? Haran, which is a city, okay, and now we have Padan Aram, which is a region, and Haran is within Padan Aram, okay, and then there's a kingdom named Aram Naharaim. So let's read a little bit about each one. So we know Haran is a city. We've located it in southeastern Turkey. Padan Aram in Aramaic means the field of Aram, a name that distinguishes the flatland from the mountainous regions to the north and east. Abraham, the patriarch of the Abrahamic religions, did describe these lands as the land of my birth. We saw that in, I think, 2 parshas ago. In the Hebrew Bible, Padan Aram designates the area of Haran in Upper Mesopotamia. Padan Aram and Haran may be dialectical variations regarding the same locality, as Padanu and Haranu are synonyms for road and caravan route in Akkadian. So here, it's possible that they're the same area, but the way I like to think of it is Haran is the city, Padan is the region in which Haran exists, and then Aram Naharaim is the kingdom in which Padan Aram exists. So it's kind of like, if you think of it, I don't know, like the United States, New York State, and New York City. So Haran would be New York City, Padan Aram would be New York State, and then Aram Naharaim would be the United States, maybe as an example. Okay, so Padan Aram or Padan appears in 11 verses in the Hebrew Bible, all in Genesis. Adherents of the documentary theories, forget them. The city of Haran, where Abraham and his father Terach settled after leaving Ur of the Chaldees, right? While en route to Canaan, according to Genesis 11:31, was located in Padan Aram, that part of Aram Naharaim that lay along the Euphrates. Abraham's brother Nahor settled in the area. Abraham's nephew Bethuel, son of Nahor and Milcah, the father of Laban and Rebekah, lived in Padan Aram. Abraham sent his steward back there to find a wife. Blah blah blah. We know the story, okay? But I think this is the key. This is the key sentence here, okay?
Okay. A question that just came up in my mind.
Yeah.
Why? I wonder, did God tell Abraham to leave Padan Aram or leave Ur of the Kasdim, to go to a place where the people were horrible?
Well, God did not tell anybody to leave Ur Kasdim. As a matter of fact, this was a decision that Terach just made on his own. It doesn't say anything about God telling Terach to leave Ur Kasdim. It just says, if we go back to, it's got to be Genesis 12 or so, I'm going to guess. 1 second here. No, this is before Lech Lecha Me'atzachah, so it's right before this. It's going to be at the end of 11.
No, but I'm not talking about Terach. I'm talking about Abraham. God tells Abraham.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. But God does not tell Abraham to leave Ur Kasdim, because Abraham was not in Ur Kasdim at the time that God spoke to him. Abraham was already in Haran.
Okay,
the whole story.
Okay.
So no, but I mean, it does make a difference. Okay, just as a point of geography, because here I just read very quickly. This is Genesis 11:31. Vayikach Terach et Avram bino, et Lot ben Haran ben bino, vet Sarai kalato eshet Avram bino, vayitzu itam mi'ur kasdim lalechet atza Kenaan. V'yavo ad Haran v'yishu sham. So here we have Terach. I'll just translate for those.
Sorry, I got to take a phone call.
Yeah, no problem, Bruce.
Hello. Hi.
We'll wait a minute for Bruce to come back.
Oh, hi, Sequan. How are you? Are you being?
I'm in the car. Sequan and I are pretending we're in a car and we're driving to see Uncle.
Oh, that's nice. Listen, I'm in a study session right now, so I shouldn't stay on the phone. Okay? But okay, drive safely.
Bye.
Bye.
That was the friend, family, whatever.
Yeah,
anyway.
my sister and her granddaughter.
Oh, that's nice.
They're making believe that they're driving to visit me.
Oh.
So I said, drive safely.
Okay. Got it. All right. So at any rate, so verse 31, so this is 11:31. So Terach took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran, the son of his son, and Sarai. Anyway, he takes the whole family, okay? And he left with them from Ur Kasdim, or of the Chaldees, Lalechet Atz Canaan. So Terach actually wanted to go to the land of Canaan. Isn't that interesting?
Oh.
But on the way, they reached this place Haran, and they settled there. Okay.
Huh.
Yeah. People miss this because it's kind of like it's usually brushed over, but it was Terach who took the family out of Ur Kasdim on I believe the Euphrates River, maybe the Tigris, but I believe the Euphrates River, and brought them over to this place Haran. Okay, and they were on their way to Canaan, but Terach stopped in Haran, and then that's where God appears to Avram. Okay, he's not Abraham yet, and this is the next chapter, Genesis 12. Yomer Yehovah el Avram, lech lecha me'atzcha me'moladetecha me'beit avicha el haaretz asher arecha. Okay, so they're now in Haran, and that's when God appears to Abraham and tells him to go from your land. Okay, now it's interesting.
It's just a general question. Why? Yeah. I wonder why God chose Canaan, because it was populated by pretty despicable idol worshippers.
I think there are certain reasons given why God chose Canaan. And one of the reasons is that it's a very beautiful land, right? That's mentioned later in the Torah many times. It's a land that's not like Egypt's, right? Where there's water at your feet, like a vegetable garden, but it's a land that God's eyes are on it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So there's more reliance on God, because it depends on rain, and depends on the ma'ayinot, the water courses underneath, that they be full, and that everything it requires a lot more. You can't just in those days build desalination plants and give the middle finger to God like they're doing today, right? You had to actually rely on whether God is going to bring rain or not. So the beauty of the land is mentioned. And then my personal opinion is, I just think, again, there's a geographical region, which is, as we all know, there's always a controversy. Usually Israel is attributed to, or is ascribed to being part of the continent of Asia. But it's not so clear, because you have this fault, the Afro-Asiatic fault, which goes right through the Dead Sea plain, or the Dead Sea cleft. You can make an argument that it's really part of Europe. You can actually make an argument that it's part of Africa. So it's not so clear that it's part of Asia. The point being that Israel is really it's basically the crossroads of the ancient world, right? It's the connecting point between Africa, Asia, and Europe. So it really kind of was, I guess, like, you could say the New York City of its day, or that region was just a central area, and so I think that has a lot to do with it. If we're going to be teaching the world morality, if we're going to be teaching the world Torah, then Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, then it has to be from a central region. Imagine if we were off in some island like Telugu out in the South Pacific. No one no one, especially in those days before internet, would ever hear of us. But here we are at the crossroads, and we're supposed to set up an example society, an example nation. So I think that the geography of the place has a lot to do with it. So I'm in study right now. No, I didn't feed the text. Okay, so please. All right. So that's my particular answer. I don't know if anyone else has any particular answers, but that's my answer.
Good answer.
Yeah, Bruce, do you have any ideas, or you want to add to that?
No, I didn't have any ideas. That's why I asked.
Okay. So getting back to, hold on one second. I apologize. The class has to be up. No, I mean, sorry. Right. Take too bad as well. All right. So, yeah. So, getting back to the little geography lesson, and then I think we should move on because we'll be here all day. So, Padan. So this sums it up, right? I posted it. So we know that the kingdom was named Aram Naharaim, and Naharaim means two rivers. It's the dual form of Nahar, right? So there's in Hebrew, there's singular, plural, and dual, as those who know Hebrew know. Naharaim is the dual form, and it means two rivers, right? Like Na'alayim, etc., etc. So Aram Naharaim, Aram, between the rivers, is the biblical term for the ancient land of the Arameans, right? Aram, Arameans, referring to the region of Mesopotamia. Okay. Aram Naharaim is also mentioned as Naharima of the Arameans in the Elamona letters. The northern part of Aram Naharaim was called Padan Aram. So let's see if we can see that here. Let me just make sure it's coming up. Oops. There we go. So does it point it out? Let's see here. Oh, this is quite a mess of a map. I think this is Haran right there. I don't know if this map is too confusing, so let's back out of it. The northern part of Aram Naharaim was called Padan Aram, the region where Abraham settled with his family. It is mentioned 5 times in the Hebrew Bible. Aram Naharaim is in the Old Testament. In Genesis, it is used somewhat interchangeably with the names Padan, Aram, and Haran to denote the place where Abraham stayed briefly with his father Terach's family after leaving Ur of the Chaldees while en route to Canaan. So I think this pretty much, again, sums it up. Okay, right there. In Genesis.
Okay,
Right.
28:13. It says,
one second. After leaving Ur of the Chaldees while en route to Canaan. Let me just post this for 1 second. So that kind of sums it up, right? The 3 are basically used interchangeably. So Aram Naharaim is the Aramean kingdom. Padan Aram is the region, the northern region of that kingdom, and Haran is the city within Padan Aram. And then we have, of course, Ur of the Chaldees, which I just want to check out very quickly. So Ur Kasdim, commonly translated as Ur of the Chaldeans or of the Chaldees, the city mentioned in the Hebrew Bible is the birthplace, make it larger so people can see on the shared screen, of the Israelite and Ishmaelite patriarch Abraham. In 1862, Henry Rawlinson identified Ur Kasdim with Tel El Muqayyar near Nasiriyah in southern Iraq. In 1927, Leonard Woolley excavated the sites and identified it as a Sumerian archaeological site where the Chaldeans were to settle around the 9th century BCE. Recent archaeological work has continued to focus on the location in Nasiriyah, where the ancient ziggurat of Ur is located. Okay. So, there's Ur today. Ruins of Ur. Ziggurat visible in the background. And where is it located? So there's Ur today. Oops, it takes the location off here, but okay. So that's it. So that just to get everything in perspective. Yeah, Bruce. So now your next issue that you want to raise, or next question.
Right. 28:13.
Yeah.
Defining Yaakov, it's talking about Yaakov.
Yeah.
And it says, Avicha Abraham, your father Abraham, and it doesn't even mention Yitzchak. I wonder why that is.
Well, it does in 13.
In 13.
Elohei Yitzchak.
Let me get my glasses on.
Okay.
28:13. 28:13. והנה יוהה ניצב עליו ויאמר אני יוהה אלוהי אברהם אביך. I'm Yahweh, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Yitzchak, but it doesn't say your father.
No.
That's my point. It says Abraham, your father. It doesn't say Yitzchak, your father. Isn't that peculiar?
Well, I don't know. No, because the Torah is not always, consistent in that form. I mean, I think it's a mistake to look at the Torah as like some kind of like mathematical or scientific document where everything has to be 100% consistent.
No, but anyway, Melech, anyway, it could easily have said, I'm Yehovah, the God of Abraham, and the God of Yitzchak, your father. It puts your father in the wrong place.
Well, first of all, Av, okay, so Av and Ben don't always mean father and son. And I could prove it to you with another verse in just a second. But Av usually can also mean, by extension, your, hold on a second, fly. Damn it, these little bastards. I'm on a mission. I'm telling you. Av, by extension, can mean basically your ancestors, your male ancestors. And just as Ben, Banim, can mean doesn't necessarily mean son, it can mean male descendants. Right. And likewise, Ach doesn't always mean brother. By extension, it means they usually translate as kin. Okay? But let me show you a proof right now. And that would be in Genesis 32. But this is very common, this is common throughout the Torah and throughout the Tanakh. But let's see if I can find here. No, it's before this. 1 second. No, we went too far. Hold on a second. 31. Saw it called 1 second. I'm trying to look for the verse, and I can't find it right now. But Lavan,
right, we could leave it.
Well, Lavan says you didn't let me say goodbye to all my sons and daughters. Okay. Well, we know that Lavan has 2 daughters that it says Banai Binotai. Okay, and I can't find the verse right now.
That's what I just read.
Oh, where?
Cantillating.
Right. So do you remember where that verse is? It must be here. Hold on a second.
It was in 29.
Yeah, it's around here somewhere. Here it is. It's verse 28. So it's Genesis 31, 28. Below, natashtani linashek levanai ulevneotai ata iskalta aso. So you did not allow me or did not let me, in Tosh, abandon in modern Hebrew, right? So you didn't allow me to kiss literally it says my sons and my daughters. Okay? Ata iskalta aso. But you were, to quote Ralph Cramden, you were a Weisenheimer with me. So you outsmarted me basically. So but we see here that Lavan is complaining that he didn't get to kiss his sons and his daughters goodbye. Well, he doesn't have any sons that are going with Yaakov. He only has daughters, right? So who are these sons? The sons there are clearly referring to the children of Rivka and Leah, and the two, not Rivka, of Rachel and Leah, Leah and Rachel, and the 2 concubines and Zilpah and Bilhah, right? That's clearly what it's referring to, but yet they're called Livanai, okay, and my sons, okay. But so again, Banai, and there's actually a lot of confusion in the Tanakh a lot of times, because it'll say that someone is the son of someone else, and it doesn't mean son necessarily. It can mean the male descendant, right? Or here the female descendant. So this just means descendants, just as Av and Em, Avot and Imahot, although is the male ancestors. Okay. So therefore, go back to your question, where Avraham is called Avicha, is called your father. So it just means your ancestor, your grandfather, basically. Okay. And Yitzhak is not referred to it at all. I think maybe either because he's still alive, or because the focus is on the Brit, the original covenant being made with Avraham being the first patriarch. That would be my explanation. So
okay,
yeah. So, and by the way, if anyone else wants to jump in and say anything or add any comments, then please do. But all right, next, Bruce.
Next, the next verse, 28:14.
Yeah.
Ufa ratzta.
Yeah.
You know the famous Chabad song.
Of course.
So the commandment is spread out. And in Israel today, they forgot. It's more like cramp thyself rather than spread out.
For sure. And but just a couple. That's, of course, I agree. As someone who believes in the the full borders of of Israel, eventually stretching from the Euphrates to the river of Egypt, whatever that is. They don't think it's not usually considered the Nile River, but yeah, obviously I agree with you. But I'll say even something more than that. I've spent a fair amount of time in Morocco, and the Moroccan king in recent years has, at least when I was there, was making an attempt to woo Moroccan Jews back to Morocco. He wanted Jews to come back. The population of Morocco has been, steadily dwindling. At this point, there are about 3,000 Jews left in Morocco, almost all of them in Casablanca. In Marrakesh, where I spent most of my time, there were about 150 Jews maximum, with basically 2 synagogues, one active and one kind of an old synagogue that was actually built in the 1500s to accommodate the refugees from Spain and Portugal when they were kicked out of the Iberian Peninsula. At any rate, I digress. The point being that the Moroccan king's plea, or his pitch to the Moroccan Jews of Israel, were come back home, where you can live in an open land. You can have your own house on a large tract of land. You don't have to live cluttered in apartment blocks as you do in Israel. Okay, and certainly he was referring to the fact that when the Moroccans came, they were putting them in the ma'abarot. They were put in the in the transit camps and basically the tent cities. And then they were given these small apartments in small apartments and crowded apartment blocks, mostly in development cities, to either to live in or to buy at very cheap costs. This is a shame, and it's a disgrace that we as the people of Israel, that this is our land. And we have to live, in this manner, in these cramped apartment blocks. It infuriates me when I see. Let me just get rid of that. No, let's do it this way. It infuriates me when I see Jerusalem being built up, more vertically, taller buildings, and the excuse always given is we're running out of housing. We're running out of space to make housing. Well, if we were allowed to settle our entire land and expand our land, right? We gave back the Sinai in 79 or whatever it was. We've never, fully been allowed to live where you're living, in Yehuda Shomron, and we certainly haven't made any attempts to expand our territory even further. Although that I'm sure that opportunity will come when the surrounding nations eventually start a war with us one way or another. But we live in these, cramped in these crowded apartment blocks, and we look at our cousins over there, and they certainly do to a certain degree live in big cities, but they also live in these large tracts of lands and these large houses, and they're living our dream, and we're trapped we're crowded together. So it's just the opposite of this paratsta.
It's a mentality thing. It's a general mentality, because even here where I live, we're on the edge of the Judean wilderness,
right?
And they limit a building plot, to a half a dunam, which is like an eighth of an acre. An eighth of an acre. And we're right on the edge of this vast wilderness. It's a mentality problem.
Right. Mentality problem. It's a mentality problem. I'd say more than that. It's a hatred problem and a jealousy problem, that instead of the Jewish nation supporting each other, we always try to oppress each other and destroy each other and put each other down. And part of that is, I'm not, you're not going to have a big piece of land and a big house and lots of money and all that stuff. No, you're if anyone's going to have it, it's going to be me who has it, not you, right? So it is a disgusting mentality, as a matter of fact, and it's also a mentality. I think it's a mentality left over from the Holocaust. That we should live these very simplistic, penurious, I believe is the word. These very frugal lives. There's a whole bunch of we wasn't it Rav Kahana who said Am Yisrael doesn't, the nation of Israel, the Jews don't need a prime minister. They need a psychiatrist. It's true.
My dad never used the F word.
Right.
Except in one case.
Yeah.
Jews F each other.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. It's amazing that the rest of the world accuses us of sticking together and helping each other out, when really internally we're kind of experts at screwing each other over. And if there's any proof of that, it's the state of Israel. Never have I ever seen a place where Jews are so at each other's throats, and there's so much hatred and jealousy and just violence sometimes between Jews, and so much use of the enemy to oppress our own people by internal enemies of our own people who hate us. I could go on and on and on, but anyone who lives there knows the entire story already. So we'll just leave it at that. It's a pretty sad state of affairs, that's for sure. That's for sure. All right, next issue that you want to talk about, and I just want to say I'm going to stop the study in about 10 minutes because I haven't eaten all day. I'd like to eat, and then we're going to have another study this afternoon it'll be 4:30 Jerusalem time, and I think we'll start again probably by reading through the Parsha. So if you'd like to join us then and do your wonderful reading, that would be great. So we're going to go for another 10 minutes. So yeah, Bruce, go for it. What else do you want to talk about here?
Okay. I'm looking at my notes, 28:15. I write ha. Right after saying that ha'adamah implies the whole world, it's now used to indicate Israel. But it is ha'adamah hazot.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to read the verse to myself to remind myself what I might have been thinking. V'hinei anochi imcha u'shamarticha b'chol asher telech v'hashivticha el ha'adamah hazot. Okay. All right. I think I understand already. I answered my own question. When it says ha'adamah, it means in general, and it could even be the world. But now ha'adamah hazot is referring to Israel, obviously.
Yeah. It's the same with aretz. Aretz can sometimes mean the entire world, and can sometimes mean a particular tract of land. And I think it's not even the use of the word zot per se. It's more contextual. It's, we know Hebrew is a very flexible language, not like English, or not like Western Romance languages, Greek, et cetera, where everything is a very kind of precise meaning. The meanings of a word in Hebrew can fluctuate greatly, and can even sometimes be, I won't say loosely related to each other, but not tightly related to each other. And that's why the context is so important when trying to understand ancient Hebrew. So yeah, you can have Adamah. I think where God says He's going to bring a flood on all the Adamah. I believe it uses there the word Adamah, not Aretz. And other places where it can refer to the entire world, or at least a huge portion of the world. And you have other places where it's referring to a specific portion of land. So I think like you said, I think you answered your own question there.
Okay. My next question is the next verse, and it's a philosophical question. He wakes up from his dream and he says, wow, now I know that God is in this place.
Right.
He doesn't know that God is everywhere. I mean, why does he say that? It's really a philosophical question.
Right.
And to answer that, the rabbinic Jews, and I read our friend, what's his name? Danny. He said, really, it wasn't Bet El. Really, it was Har Habayit.
There's actually, that's an interesting topic, which maybe, I'd actually like to focus on that topic more than on your question, believe it or not, because this is something that I think is not completely without merit.
Okay.
But it might be completely without merit. I might just be influenced by the rabbinical form thinking. But there are a couple of hints, and I'm going to show them to you. Let me just see here. Okay, so we know that, first of all, Yaakov has left Beersheba, right? And he's on his way to Haran. Okay? So if we look at a map again, now we don't know the route he took, obviously, but let's know.
But he could have passed through Jerusalem. He could have. Okay.
Well, let's just take a look at, here, Google Maps. One second. So let's see here. Oops. So we'll do. So we said Haran is right around here somewhere, right? And we know that Beersheba is, let's say, where's Beersheba? There's Beersheba, right? So he would have been heading north.
Are you showing a map? Because I don't see anything.
Yeah.
I just
I didn't have that. Yeah, 1 second. I gotta do this. All right. Now you should be able to see it. So here's Beersheba. One of the annoying things about Google's every time you go over something, it brings up. But here's Beersheba over there. Okay. And if we stream out a little bit, scroll out a little bit. Okay, so there's Haran over there, right? So he's definitely heading northeast from Beersheba. Okay. And here's Jerusalem right there, which was nothing at that time. It was just, I don't even know if it was a Jebusite city at that time, but later it was a Jebusite city, right? Salem. So he's definitely got to head in that direction. That's number one. Do we have a time frame from when he left Beersheba to when he got to this place where the vision takes place? I'm not sure. Let's look. So here he flees. Kum lech padana Rama. This is in Genesis 28, verse 1. Beta betuel, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 okay. Yar Esav, no, Yara Esav, V'yelech Esav. Go ahead. Vayetzei Yaakov me Beersheva v'yelech Harana. Okay, we have that here. This is verse 10. And is it showing up? Yeah, it's showing up. Okay, so
your question is, did he lie down to sleep on his first evening? In other words, 1 day's walk or ride from.
I'm trying to get his, or 2 days or whoever. I don't. Who knows how long it took, right? But I mean, haven't you actually walked from your house to the Dead Sea?
I have, yeah.
And how long did that take?
It took 8 hours.
Okay, so yeah, 1 or 2 days, let's say, right? From Beersheba to Jerusalem, I guess you can walk. Let's say 2 days. So, because you're not going to walk straight through, you're going to rest, right? So Yifga b'makom v'yalen sham kiba hashemesh v'kach me'avnei makom v'yasem ereshatav v'yishkav b'makom ahu. So there's no indication there how long after he left Beersheba that he gets to this place. However, you could make an argument that says he left Beersheba, and it almost seems to imply that first night, well, Yifka b'makom v'yalen sham ki ba hashemesh, and he came to a place and he rested there because the sun went down. Well, that's interesting, right? It seems to be the same day, actually, if you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wouldn't that kind of imply it's the same day?
Maybe.
He leaves Beersheba early in the morning, let's say, and then the sun goes down and he comes to a place, right? If it were like 10 days later, I don't think it would mention the reason he stopped because the sun went down, because he already would have been stopping at a bunch of places as the sun went down. Although it's definitely not conclusive, right?
I think
one could make a deep. What?
I rode a bicycle from Jerusalem to Beersheba. It was 6 hours.
Well, you could assume he didn't just walk. He was on camels or donkeys or whatever the case may be. So maybe that's about the speed of a bicycle. So that maybe that's about 6 hours, or it's definitely within range of 1 day, right?
Yeah.
And one can certainly make an argument from this verse here that he left Beersheba, and then the sun goes down and he rests in this place. So let's, for the sake of argument, put that as one potential clue. Okay, but now we have another bunch of other very interesting statements about this place, and I want to find them. Okay, so we know the story, right? The ladder reaches up to heaven, etc., etc. God's standing at the top of the ladder. Okay, or an angel of God is standing at the top of the ladder. As a good friend of mine, fellow Hakham, Yaakov ben Yisrael, always points out that when it says Yehovah is speaking, it really means an angel is speaking, and they're used rather interchangeably. But at any rate, God or an angel of God speaks to Yaakov and points this out. So we know that story, but there's a couple of interesting things here. 1 second, let me find them. Okay, so now we have in verse 16, and this is the verse I think you're referring to. Certainly, Yehovah is in this place, and I didn't know. Okay, and then he goes on to say in verse 7, and this is feared, not saw, obviously. Because with an aleph, so he was afraid. How terrible, how awesome is this place? And then it says, very strange statement here. Ein ze ki im beit Elohim, v'zeh sha'ar hashamayim. So look at that, Bruce. This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate to heaven. Well, the temple is later on called the house of God many times, Beit Elohim or Beit Yehovah.
Yeah, well, Bet El is called the house of God. Up in the Shomron.
Well, this place is right. Well, wait a second. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a second. 1 second. Let me just go ahead. Wait, I just want to see one thing. Right. So this place is called Bet El, right? So he names it Bet El, which is formerly Luz. Okay, but this place that we call Bet El up in Yehuda is not necessarily the ancient Bet El. We'd have to see, what the archaeologists have found. What is it? Well, you know what? Let's look that up for a second. That might give us some information as well.
But Melech, it's not in Yehuda. It's in the Shomron.
Bet El is in Shomron, not in Yehuda. Okay.
Yeah, it's Ephraim.
Okay, I didn't know that. I've been there many times, but for some reason I thought it was in Yehuda. But let's see here. Bet El. Okay, so that's our modern Bet El. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
Blah blah. Scholars identify Bet El with the site of the biblical Bethel. Well, this is really what we want. So Bethel is the name of a place often used in the Hebrew Bible. Is first mentioned in Genesis 12:8 as being near where Abram pitched his tent. Later in Genesis, is the location where, make this larger, Jacob dreamt of seeing angels and God, in which he therefore named Bethel, house of God. The name is further used for a border city located between the territory of the Israelite tribe of Benjamin and that in the tribe of Ephraim, which first belonged to the Benjamites and then was later conquered by the Ephraimites. Okay, so let's see. Identification. Edmund Robinson, famous archaeologist, of course, and identified the Arab village of Beitin in the West Bank with ancient Beth El in biblical researches in Palestine. He based this assessment on its fitting the location described in earlier texts and on the philological similarities between the modern and ancient name, arguing that the replacement of the Hebrew El with In was not unusual. Most academics continue to identify Beth El with Beitin. Okay, so where is Beitin? We don't know.
Yeah, right. I want to see. Okay, Maps Google.
Yeah. But it's not Jerusalem, right?
Right.
Livingston contradicts this view based on lack of positive identification by means of inscriptions and relying on distance from Jerusalem, according to much later. These are church fathers, right? He identifies Beth El with El Bira, suggesting that Beitin might be the biblical Ophrah.
Oh. Okay, they're not more than like 10 kilometers one from the other. They're very close.
Yeah. So it's mentioned being close to Ai. Anyway, the point being they don't really know where Bethel is. So let's drop that for a second and get back to this and realize that those who say it might be Jerusalem, I think do have a point because of this language, this very strange language here. Okay, Enki im Beit Elohim v'zeh she'ar shamayim. This is none other than the house of God and the gate to heaven. Okay, and then there's another statement. Let me find it. Okay. So look at this, verse 21. Okay, no, verse 22. So Jacob takes one of the stones that he slept on and makes basically like an altar, a matzeva. This stone, Asher Samti Matzeva, which I turned into a standing pillar or a matzeva, Beit Elohim will be the house of God. V'chol Asher Titenli, Aser Asarenu Lach, and everything you give me, I will tithe. Okay. Well, okay, this is pushing it a little bit far, but we know that later we were tithing to the house of God, right? Okay, so let's not even go there. That's maybe pushing it a bit too far. But it is interesting that he calls this place Beit Elohim a number of times, and the gate to heaven. Okay, well, it doesn't say anywhere, I don't think, that Jerusalem is the gate to heaven or that the Beit HaMikdash is the gate to heaven. But there is this idea, and certainly it kind of makes sense that Jerusalem is kind of, the gate, the pathway to heaven from earth, or the closest that earth comes to heaven, at least when God's presence is there, So maybe this is kind of some kind of foreshadowing in the Torah. Maybe Jacob didn't even know it, but maybe this foreshadowing God knew, and maybe this is the very place. Maybe this is Har HaMoriah. I don't know. I just think there is some strange language there, since I don't think we know exactly where Bethel is, to definitely make a case, at least, that this Bethel might be Jerusalem, might be the Temple Mount where he rested. I don't know.
Okay.
Also, we see that now, when is it? No, it's with the sacrifice of Abraham to Isaac. Then it says he went to Har HaMoriah, right? That would be in. Let me just look one more thing here. So that's going to be in. So now we have, this is going to be much before this. So that's going to be maybe, that's Abraham, maybe around here or something like this. Yeah. Genesis 22. So what's Eretz HaMoriah? So this is really a different issue altogether. I'm just curious. Mountain, do we know where Moriah is? No, we don't know. It's only mentioned once. No, it's mentioned twice. Yushalayim b'Har HaMoriah. Well, this is interesting. In 2 Chronicles 3:1. Let's take a look at this. What was it? 31? Chronicles 3:1. החל שלמה לבנות את בית יהוה בירושלים בהר המוריה אשר נראה לדוד אביהו אשר הכין במקום דוד בגורן ארנן היבוסי. יחל לבנות בחודש Okay, so look at this. So יחל שלמה לבנות את בית יהוה בירושלים בהר המוריה. Okay, so according to 2 Chronicles 3, this place, which again is called, here it's called Beit Yehoah, as it is many times, or it's sometimes called Beit Elohim, in Jerusalem, on Har HaMoriah, okay? But we saw in the sacrifice of Isaac that went to Har HaMoriah. So there's this rabbinical legend that Isaac was almost sacrificed on Har HaBayit, on what is today Har HaBayit. Well, if we compare the only two places that the word Moriah appears in the entire Tanakh, that would seem to justify that conclusion, right?
Yeah, sure.
So what's my point? Okay, it doesn't mention anything about this place being the future place of where the temple is going to be. It just happens to be some mountain that Isaac goes to called Moriah. And we can't always rely on Chronicles 3:1, right? The name may have changed by then. They may have taken the name Moriah. Sometimes names refer to different places. But again, you can make a good case that the place where, based on these two verses, that the place where Isaac was sacrificed, almost sacrificed, was the Temple Mount, even though it doesn't mention anything about the Temple Mount in the story in Genesis 22:2. But it does say, one second here. I'm going to do it in English. No. For 1 second, just to skim through it quickly. One second. Okay, sacrifice him as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. So the region of Moriah, early the next morning, cut an offering there, place there, Abraham took the wood, son, blah, 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 blah. Built an altar. Okay, so there's kind of hints there. He's building an altar. He's what? I'm gonna stop for 1 second. So just let me finish off the study. Do whatever you want, but just let me finish off the study. Sure, go for it. Yeah. Then he reached out his hand and took a knife. Okay, do not lay hand in the blah blah blah. The angel of second. I will surely bless you and make your descendants. Then Alban comes to no, so there's nothing else there. Wait a second. No, I was looking for what? Okay, so I don't call the place the Lord will provide. So here's an interesting verse. In Genesis 22:14. You still there, Bruce?
Yeah.
So in Genesis 22:14, it says this is Abraham after the ram was caught in the thicket, which was sacrificed in place of Isaac. Oikra Avraham Shema Makom Hahu Yehovah Yireh Asher Ye'amer Hayom Bahar Yehovah Yera'eh. That is said today, on the mountain of Yehovah he will be seen. The mountain of Yehovah. That's kind of interesting phrase, right? We know that this mountain where this happened was Moriah, and we know from 2 Chronicles 3:1 that Moriah is explicitly the Temple Mount, right? We saw that in, where was it? 2 Chronicles.
In Chronicles that you just read.
Yeah, in the Chronicles I just read, right? 2 Chronicles 3:1. Okay. Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. So my battery's about to go dead, so I'm going to end the study, but right now, as a matter of fact, because my battery's about to die and I've gone past my time. But if you want, we can pick this up this afternoon, because I think this is I think there is justification to make a claim that this Bet El place is actually Beit Elohim, is actually a foreshadowing for Jerusalem, just as very possibly the place where Isaac was almost sacrificed could be thought of as being foreshadowed towards the Temple Mount as well. Okay, so I'm going to end it here because my battery's about to die. I wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. We're going to pick it up at 4:30 Jerusalem time, which would be it would be Western Europe time, or London time is going to be 2:30, which makes it Eastern United States time. New York time 14 minus 5 would be 9:30 a.m. So I'm going to end it real quick because my battery is about to die and I don't want it to conk out. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Bye-bye.
For participating, Bruce. Hope to see you later and talk to you later. Okay.
See you later.
Yep.
Bye.